I got 3 cues in Kevin Hart's and Nick Cannon's new show. Let me show you how I made those tracks. It's a great day to be alive. Now, before I get into those tracks, I got 3 key reasons why I think these tracks got picked for the show. Let's start with number 1. How I usually structure my music is I like to make albums. Now, some publishers, they like albums because it's a wide variety of music and you get more chances to get placed. If we take a look at my tracks right here, this is the album that the tracks came on. 3 of the tracks came from this album. It was an electro pop album. And if you look at the titles, they kind of like spacey with party vibes. So that was the vibe I was trying to go for. And this just helps you hone in on themes for music libraries and editors and music supervisors because they want themes. It's just easier to package things as a theme. Also, having more tracks, it helps to increase your catalog faster. So instead of making like 1 or 2 songs, and in some cases, you may be competing with one song because the brief says make the specific type of track. So you're trying to make the best track you want to make, but generally, you're making albums so that way you can progress faster than, let's say, if you do one album a month at 10 tracks, you got 120 tracks that you can pitch to shows every year. Having more tracks also allows you to take more misses. Now, every track is not going to be a banger. That's just how it goes. So having 10 to 12 tracks on the album, that gives you more chances to get your music placed. Now let's dive into the tracks. So this is track 1 and it's called Circus Bounce. So it's like a party fun track. Let's take a listen to the track real quick. Now, after you hear that, that brings me to my second point. It's called keeping things simple. Your music is not the star unless it gets in the movie placement and it's real monumental. But for most of the time, the vocals is the actual star, just like in rap music with an artist. So it's the same thing here. Keeping things simple allows the vocals to be heard during the scene. So for this track, we start with that main lead. So if we look right here in the orange, this is the main theme of the song. Now in this first section, it's a lot going on in it, but it's still simple. Let me show you what I mean. So in the second half of it, all he is playing it an octave lower. So it's the same thing. So it sounds like it's chaotic, but it's really playing the same thing. And that the variation in this lead gives it movement throughout the tracks. And then when we leave this section, see, I add some more movement, bounce, party. Then we get ready for our transition effects. So that's the first track. Let's check out the second one. So let's listen to this track, Cosmic Boogie. Again, this is like an electronic pop album theme, so I'm sticking with that. The second song that got placed. Hear those space effects. Here's the main riff. So even though, if you can see right here in the orange, I'm playing the same thing with the main riff, but everything else around it is changing. So that's again with the principle of keeping it simple. So even though you might get used to that pluck sound in the track, but everything else around it. So I got these effects like this sync stab in here, right? That's just an extra effect to add some extra tension. Right here in the green, this lead. So that adds some movement in the track. And then we have a traditional riser. So you see, again, it's simple, but the other stuff around it is creating some movement in a party space like atmosphere. Now let's go to the last track. So this last track that got placed is called Shake It, Break It, Pop It. Let's listen to it. So again, simple, but it's a lot of space. If you look in the red, my drums almost look kind of the same throughout. It's really the movement of the instruments. If we listen to it from the beginning, we got that little arpeggio, and you see how the filter is changing. Then that little lead slide in there for some change. Then the little EQ slide, right? Add some more change, some more variation coming up. Little lead. Then into the hook with that main instrument. Now, if you see here, this instrument it's the same as this one. So that's a little simple trick I usually do, nothing fancy. And what I do is I just add a simple EQ, and you can see I took out most of the highs. Simple. Don't overthink it. It's just a ride for the verses. So if you think about arranging like that, you throw on a simple EQ with the same instrument, the same pattern that you used in the verse and the hook, it sounds different because of the EQ, and it adds variation, and it adds it very simply. And speaking about variation, that adds to the third tip, which is having alternate tracks. So let me close out this. So I like to break down things into different phases. This is just the production phase of the track you're looking at. So it's not mixed. It's just volume mixed at this point. But when I go to my rough mix, I like to separate these because it gets me in a different frame of mind from production, mixing, and mastering. I don't want to think about mixing while I'm making the track. So here is the actual mix track. You can see I got things muted and soloed. And this brings to my alt tracks. So right now you're hearing a real toned down version. And if you can see right here in the blue in my mixer section at the bottom, I have different things muted. So this will probably be my underscore, which means it doesn't have all the elements in it, but it still keeps the track going, keeps the cues going, keeping the movement going for the scene. So what I simply would do on my master buses right here would create different versions. So I would bounce and export this as my master version. That's one alt track. Then I'll do just drums and bass, and probably with the effects. Then I'll also do a version where I'll put no drums in it, and it's just this. So if I close out this project and show you, so if I go to all my mixes, you can see I have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 different alternate tracks. I have my main one. I have the underscore I just played. I actually had a second underscore, a version with no drums, a version of just drums, and a version of drums and bass. And making alt tracks for all of your cues that you make give you better chances to make a placement, because if an editor wants to pull something, say they just want to use the drums for the first half of the scene, and then they want to come in with the hook because there's an emotional part, so they do it. Because they don't have access to your files, they can't custom mix. Now, this would be different if you're actually scoring a film or anything. You're working directly with the people that tells you, we want it to drop like this, we want it to sound like this at this moment. But since I work mainly with music libraries, they don't, unless you know someone who's actually doing it, they use these alt tracks to create the different moods and swings. Like I said, they might start with just the drums and bass to build tension. Then as soon as something happens in the scene, they'll drop the hook. And then at the end, they'll use a sting or a 30-second version to close it out. Now, these 3 tips I shared, they're good starting points to helping your music have a higher chance to get placed in TV shows. But nothing is guaranteed, because a lot of my music, I still don't know why it gets picked. I mean, it could be, it just fits the scene well. It's mixed decently enough, better than anyone others. It has the right energy. Unless you're working directly with the people, you probably won't ever know. But these tips should give you a better chance to getting your music placed. But if you're still struggling with your structure, your format, and what sounds to make, check out this video.